Hey, what is up everyone, I'm Sonic the Hedgehog here, and of course I'm Pinkie Pie here. We are from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos, and today, ladies and gentlemen, this is gonna be a grand finale of the entire Super Mario Party Let's Play. Because of this though, we're about to be finishing up with the forms of Challenge Mode in Master Mode, so hopefully we can able to actually just get this finished before July actually finishes and over. So even then though, because today was, the 28th of July, so even then I was want to classify for that specific date alone. So even then though, let us get this thing to it with, as you can see on screen, we are playing through metal detectors, and basically we're about to get started on Salty Sea. So as far as recording in terms on that specific minigame for metal detectors, is that obviously we need to aim for 30 coins or what have you. But surprisingly enough though, it did actually took us about 8 attempts, because the other several attempts is pretty luck based sometimes, because even then though, it's also pretty slow at the same time, because even then though that, although the HD Rumble feature does manage to work half the time, but if you really want to find more coins than ever will be, sometimes it feels kind of luck-based at times, because even then though, because sometimes you're able to get a low amount of coins, or most of the time you will get yourselves higher amounts. So, yeah, definitely a little bit tricky of that minigame though, because that was the only reason why it took us about 8 attempts or 2. Well, 8 or anything like that, because the 7 attempts is actually going pretty bad at that one point. So anyways though, next minigame here is Take a Stab, and basically this one is the fact that we need to aim for about 50 points. So again, you really can't afford to able to do it too many earlys or too late, so you always have to get like a nice timing for every single phases. So, but even then though, it's not too bad though, and it actually took us about 1 attempt on that minigame, so that's the reason why we did manage to accomplish that. Next minigame here is Off the Chain, which is also a first attempt, because now we're actually going to be riding on the chain jump. So even then though, that's because, well, just like in Drop Shot, it makes the actual minigame super easy if you manage to get the hang of it. And plus, as a result, it also just makes it a little bit of a quicker time when it comes to able to complete those specific minigames like this. So even then though, that's as far as I can usually think about this for the time's sake. So next of all is Looking for Love, and in this one we need to aim for about 40 points without any single misses. So even then though, just like the ones how it does it for the first time, but now we have more amounts of points you need to aim for. So and obviously this one is also the first attempt though, because even then though, we're actually doing pretty good at this minigame though, at least unlike any forms of how it does it on Don't Look, on both Mario Party 9 and Mario Party the Top 100 sometimes, because we just couldn't seem to able to focus in on too much screen all at once. But at least even then though, in this particular minigame alone, as long as you can able to actually use the full face buttons on your Joy-Con controller, at least depends on what controls you'll be using, that way you can have yourselves a very comfortable time on that specific run. So even then though, that's as far as I can go for that part. Alright, so I believe next of all is going to be Perfect Fit, and conveniently enough, we're actually going to be teaming up with Bowser on that specific minigame, as you can see on screen. And for Perfect Fit, also a first attempt, because I first of all originally was going to be 2 attempts on that part, because sometimes computer players always attempt to mess up with our movements, if you can tell. But as much like always, we really can't afford to let the other rival team win on that one. So even then though, yeah, it's pretty easy though if you manage to get the hang of it though. So even then though, as I said before, first attempt. So even then though, but it wasn't until when it gets to the point until the later minigames, this is where we get ourselves a whole bunch of failed attempts. So even then though, home on the rank though, it was actually surprisingly enough 2 attempts, because even then, for the first attempt though, we actually seriously get screwed over with all these, timing throws or whatnot. So even then though, that's the only, parts we did manage to fail on. But thankfully though, on the second attempt though, it just makes it a little bit more easy and comfortable. So even then though, because of that though, you need to aim for about 80 of those points. But thankfully though, with the actual teammates in mind, it just makes it super easy and just makes it a little bit more confident about it. So even then though, that's as far as we can able to say about that. And once again folks, we really do apologize with the forms of well, in the beginning about the fact that we did manage to able to record these kinds of stuff like this, but once again my microphone is still glitched up yet again. But hopefully though, when it gets to 2020, we can replace that as a different microphone without any sort of issues. So, there's next up is Troll the Line, which even though, ironically enough, it actually took us about 3 attempts, because the first 2 attempts though is okay, but except one major issue is that the actual teammate AI is an idiot, because, well, at first I thought they're gonna do something like what they're trying to tell you to do, but for whatever reason they just do it the opposite direction, and I'm just like, are you really for real, Donkey Kong, or any kind of character? Depends on what teammates you actually come across. So even then though, definitely a little bit tricky if that minigame though, but obviously you need to win 3 rounds in a row, so just want to classify that. So next up is Block and Load, and in this minigame actually took us 6 attempts, because obviously we now need to able to get a lot used to with the forms of the limited amount of shots you need to able to pull up with, because last time we did done is 7, but now we need to do this as in 5. So even then, if you manage to able to actually be good on that specific aiming shot, then obviously you would able to do this no problem. So even then though, but it might take a lot of practice if you manage to able to mess up at that one point. So even then I just want to, you know, stabilize that. So even then, next up is clearing the table. Still, is probably perhaps one of the hardest rhythm mini games in the entire game, in my opinion. Just because you need to be super accurate with this little you know, that circle part. So, and thankfully though, unlike last time that it did took us multitude of times, this one is a first attempt, because, well, you know, with the actual nice timing, as we said this before, well, we did manage to achieve that. Almost perfect by any means though, but even then though, you'll see why whenever we get to towards the very end. So even then though, yeah, you probably get the idea of how the fact that this took us so long to able to actually get into this recording session, that part. Perfect! Alright, sweet. Because even then though, that, although this is still a post-commentary, don't get me wrong, but, even then though, that's as far as I can usually think about this for the time. So, okay, so next minigame here is, Omnibus, Be By The Way. And in this one, we need to able to go all the way to the goal within 30 seconds without even falling off. So, again, it reminds me of something related to Super Monkey Ball. When it comes to the first game, where basically they did manage to able to offer us the first bonus stage, where in the beginner mode, it always offers you 60 seconds. But in advanced and expert modes, well, it gives you 30 seconds. So it's kind of like the similar thing from here, but except rather than just able to actually collecting some bananas, of course. At least unlike any forms of how it does here on Super Monkey Ball, you can able to actually just, you know, get more extra lives based on for how much bananas you'd be collecting. So that's as far as I can go. Alright, so next up is Heir to a Fortune, or Heir to a Fortune. And this one actually took us 8 attempts, because it's pretty luck-based at times, because even then though, you have to guess where the computer players are actually going to be aiming for as coins are. So even then though, that chances are you really can't really tell where the computer players are going to be hopping to Cloud or Cloud for half the time. So, but thankfully though, the 8th attempt is actually not that bad. But then again, if you manage to able to screw up by 1 coin or anything like that, well, obviously just press pause and then just, you know, select start over. So even though I just want to classify that. So we're gonna start talking about level 5-12. Level 5-12 is Pie Hard. Pie Hard is the mini game that we did manage to win multitude of times. You know, with that in a normal Mario Party mode playthrough, which is the mini game we're always pretty good at. For Pie Hard, in recording attempts, if you want to know how many there are, there were 30. Now you know you're thinking, because we do have the opportunity, we can able to retry that and many points worth noting for. But yes, we have multitude of fails. We have so many fails in that minigame coming up. Because, well, here's the thing about this game. Pie Hard is a very simple concept, all in all, but computer players is actually goddamn idiot. Well, all you need to do in this one is that basically we need to win this minigame without getting pied at least once. but keep this in mind is that we don't have very much room left. The actual movement of the pies tossing is very dangerous, and you can easily just manage to get screwed over. The computer players manage to able to actually just really outright suck at times. Sometimes they actually temporarily team up for the opposing team to able to block your pathway. So, but even then though, this, I repeat, it took us about 30 attempts. 29 fails, but 30 attempts. So, whatever you do, do not walk around like nothing else. Only walk around if you manage to be perfectly safe. But yeah, that particular objective, even for their actual minigame, just ticked me off. It really does. I'm sure many people seem to have no issues on that specific minigame whatsoever, but for our run, holy macaroni, it just feels way too dragged on. Especially, I just keep on hearing that, well, do 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 do. That particular introduction music, it just gets repeated after a while if you keep on failing for that stuff. Luckily though, with the next minigame, as you can see, Water Racket, it only took us about 2 attempts. Because the first attempt though, we seriously get slowed down every now and then, even because of how the fact that, well, you need to be super accurate with all these racket shots or what have you. So, finally though, the pull it together minigame is actually a lot easier, because thankfully though, with the actual button mashing sequence, it just makes it super easy to able to actually just, you know, done this minigame and stuff. So even then though, because of this though, you can able to actually just, you know, beat this thing no problem. So even then though, and this is also a 1 attempt. So even then though, that pretty much does it for, Stole DC. Oh no, it was a pretty decent run though, but except Pie Hard, because Pie Hard just ticked us off. Yeah, because of how the fact it's a bit like how it did on that perfect challenge missions in Sonic and the Secret Rings, and even Sonic and the Black Knight, where you can't afford to able to get hit by enemies, at least any other objects for that matter, at least once. So, that's as far as we can say about it. So now here we go folks, on to the final world once again, in the Master Challenge Road, and this time around though we are playing as Bowser at the very end. So even then though, and the first minigame on the end of the road world is cruising through a bruising, and this one actually took us about 4 attempts, because in this one we need to survive in this minigame for about at least 50 seconds, because if you manage to able to survive for this long, then you know you can able to actually just to realize you can able to actually survive for this long. However though, there's a little bit of a difficult part about this minigame though compared to the rest though, is that, well, you know these boxes, they always attempt to place like in different areas and stuff. As a result though, this is actually a lot trickier as it looks, because if you think of the forms of how the fact that, well, the best strategy for this is that you obviously need to able to find a true path that actually doesn't have any boxes, but sometimes though, it can be pretty random at times though, if you really want to get the hang of it though. But apart from that though, we actually did this on, I would say, on the 4th attempt. On the other hand though, on Take Pancake, or in this case Can Take Pancake, it actually took us 12 attempts, because, well, the computer players are actually doing super fast and what have you, but the best strategy for this is the fact that you have to aim for the Star Pancake, because if you do manage to aim for that specific amount with, you know, the Star Pancakes, well, you can able to actually do it within, like, no sweat. So even then, that's as far as we can able to say about it here. Alright, so the next minigame here is Wiped Out, and basically though for this one is the fact that you need to aim for about 110 points. So, and even then though, this actually took us about 1 attempt on that specific minigame, because timing on this though is very accurate though. So even then though, at least I managed to time this thing no problem. So, and by the way, with the Can Take Pancake minigame though, we already done, we need to aim for about 15 points as opposed to 10. So even then though, that's as far as it makes it a little bit more tricky and difficult and harder as you progress. So even then though, that's as far as we can able to think about this for the time. So yeah, there's not much else I can really say about this here. And the reason why we are going to be playing as Bowser at the very end, especially noticeable on that specific end of the road world, on that challenge road, is the fact that we like to show off the actual staff credits thingy again. But this time around though, we actually going to be playing as Bowser on that specific ending, because, well, if you couldn't tell, is that depends on what characters you're going to be using, like either Mario out of the 19 playable characters, except one. They always share the exact same dialogue for Bowser, so even then there's not much anything else different. However though, if you're playing as Bowser, things are starting to get a little bit more, well, different around here. Because even then, well, except for Toad and Toadette, and especially noticeable for Kamek, because 3 of these characters, or these host characters, do share the exact same dialogue as the ones and how it does it from, depends on what characters you'll be using, so... yeah, we'll show that off until at the very end of this video for this point, folks. So even then, though, next minigame, as you can see right here, is Lit Potato, which this one actually took us about 3 attempts because, well, for whatever reason, they just managed to able to actually make this a little bit harder because, well, most of the time, though, the first 2 attempts, though, we seriously got screwed over with these little, randomness factor about the phones of tossing the bombs at one point. So even then, though, that's as far as we can able to think about it. For the 3rd attempt though, we did this in a no problem limbo whatsoever. So even then, the next minigame here is Sign, Steal, and Deliver. This one actually took us about 2 attempts, because the first attempt though, Rosalina was actually doing super good at this though for the first attempt. But thankfully though, this time around though, is the fact that it makes the actual processes of this minigame super easy this time, because now, rather than just able to actually using that propeller contraption, instead, then we can able to actually just walk around and, you know, trying to collect as many of those packages as much as you want. So, and of course, the good thing about this though is the fact that you can able to actually carry up to 2 packages at one time. So even then though, that's pretty cool though, especially noticeable because of how the fact that, if you really want to get more amount of points than the likes of how it does in a team of 1, well, good thing for you is the fact that you can able to actually carry 2 packages in specific in one hand. So, because compared to the team of 1 though, they did manage to able to offer you 1 package at the time. So, but then again, sometimes this minigame though can be easy to get screwed over if you manage to able to actually become in a team of 1, because sometimes though computer players manage to able to actually doing super good at it. So. Next minigame here is Sizzling Steaks, and this one's, ironically enough, it actually took us about 2 attempts, because the first attempt, though, we accidentally just managed to lose the cube, so, because in this one is the fact that we need to cook each side within 15 seconds, so, that can be pretty tricky, though, especially because of how the fact that you need to be super accurate with this specific timing aspect, but, if you manage to able to cook all of these sides, though, then luckily you can able to pass, so... yeah, that's pretty cool, sweet stuff. Alright, so next of all is Timing is Money, which similar to the forms of how it does it on, I would say by the forms of Troll the Line, and also the same applies for the next minigame, which we'll get into in just a moment. This one actually took us 2 attempts, because again, with the strict timing aspect, with all this ground pounding timing issue, well, we had a similar issue for that specific part worth noting for, and this one we need to aim for about 20 coins, and if you do manage to reach for that point, without even getting exploded at least once, then, you know, you manage to accomplish that. But then again, that minigame can get pretty tricky at times, because even then though, because of the actual stricting, you know, for that timing strict, for that specific ground pound, then, you know, you probably get the idea for that specific regard. That will have to be, at least to me though, it's probably the weakest bonus game I've ever played in a Mario Party game, because of the strict timing, ground pounds and whatnot. So, yeah, you probably get the idea of how this will go, Pinky. So, at least even then though, the next minigame here is they half the battle, and in this one we need to just simply beat the actual rival team without touching the actual amp. But this time, with, you know, limited amount of players and all that stuff. So even then, you probably get the idea for that specific teammates as far as I'm going for here. So, in this one, it actually took us about, like, 2 attempts on that specific run, because, well, the thing is about the actual first attempt, though, is the fact that, we accidentally just completely ignored the actual piece of the sun. So even then, though, that's probably because of how the fact that we wasn't paying that much attention, though, whatsoever, so... oh well, though, but hey, at least we did manage to able to accomplish that on the second attempt, so... yeah, we probably get the idea for that point. And also, during around the forms of the second time we're going to be viewing the actual the ending, but this time around though playing as Bowser of all things, we can able to actually discuss upon the final thoughts of our opinions of Super Mario Party. So even then, though, that's as far as we can go for that part. Alright, so the next minigame here, as you can see right there, is the fact that we are going to be playing through Suit Yourselves. In this case, the final time we're going to be seeing this minigame, thank God, because that minigame alone is actually probably the worst minigame selection in the entire, you know, cooperative minigames, but it's also the worst minigame in, Super Mario Party so far, because, for the love of God, it's so slow and tedious, and plus it's all about the waiting thing, and as a result, it actually took us about 2 minutes and such. But thankfully, this actually took us 1 attempt, because even then though, because you know these computer players for our teammates for our dispersal, it's actually pretty dang easy if you manage to get the hang of it. But the thing is about this challenge this time is the fact that you have to accomplish this without getting a signal or a signal miss. Because if you do miss once, well, you have to go for this entire slog again. So even then though, its best strategy for this is to be able to have the fact that, well, you need to obviously concentrate on that one card only. So even then though, well, you know, because we don't have to worry about the actual human players and all that stuff. So even then though, but then again, folks, we do apologize with the actual commentary. This is actually going a little bit more tired of all things. But don't worry though, until the future videos, specifically though for, you know, Super Mario Galaxy 2, and especially noticeable with NES Remix 2, which are about to be getting back into it at some point in Tuesday, then, you know, you probably get the idea. But we're not going to upload anything until August at some point, because there's actually going to be the upcoming our next marathon, which even then, I was expecting we could able to do a month of Castlevania or something, or especially noticeable with, you know, the Mega Man X series, but, because even then, though, there's still no, more information about the forms of Mega Man X9 at the moment, so even then, we haven't exactly thought about it yet, so even then, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. So the next minigame here is Time to Shine, and basically in this one is the fact that we need to aim for about, I would say 40 points or something, because, or in this case, for that matter though, Pinkie Pie, it was actually 50. Well, I couldn't be wrong though, because sometimes it's very hard to see some small text here and there, so even then, well, I have to admit though right away, I do apologize for that specific things itself. So even then though, in this one, however though, much like in Suit Yourselves, and especially noticeable with Wiped Out, this one is also the first attempt for successful attempts department, because, well, I feel like the timing aspect on this minigame is super easy if you manage to get the accuracy going, and yeah, it's definitely 40, because you said 50. Oh, sorry about that, Sonic, because I first thought it was actually like, the 5 next to 0, but turns out it was actually 40, so... well, we could at least look at the description or something. So, anyways, the next minigame here is, you know, Penguin Pushers. And ironically enough, this actually took us 2 attempts. Because the first attempt we actually did this minigame though, oh my gosh, we off by 1 penguin. And somehow one of the penguins actually escapes from that specific, you know, trying to able to actually crowd it ourselves. So, yeah, definitely a little bit trickier this time around though, because now we need to finish this minigame within 40 seconds. So, yeah, definitely a little bit trickier this time around though compared to last time, because, well, sometimes though it's really easy to able to actually make one of these penguins actually make it escape. But even then though, that's probably because we actually got a little bit too close for that part, so... and luckily though, for the second attempt though, not only for the sake of the forms of the successful attempt on that second attempt, but also 1 second to spare, as you can tell on screen, and then that way we can able to actually accomplish that. Alright, so next of all we have right here, we almost pretty much gonna be getting towards the end of this point, folks. So next of all is Candy Shakedown, which ironically enough, it also took us about like 8 attempts, just like the forms of how it does it on Heir to a Fortune. It's nothing that hard or anything, it's just that it makes it a little bit tricky and difficult for that specific objective, because in order to actually deal with this, is that you need to complete this minigame within 15 seconds left. And then, you know, similar to the forms of how it does it on Sizzling Steaks, sometimes we always attempt to get several mistakes because of, you know, the actual timing processing department. So because of this, though, it just makes it a little bit tricky sometimes. Thankfully, though, for making faces, though, as you can see right there, this is actually a first attempt, successful attempt. Because of this, though, in this one, we need to aim for about 90% of your face. So, and when you get the accuracy going, then you would able to actually realize how the fact that this makes this minigame super easy, though. But until we get to the point until the next two minigames, which is Fuzzy Flight Score, and especially noticeable with, you know, Sphere Moguls, which, and then eventually at this point and during the likes of the final minigame, which is the Train in Pain, you guys should probably know when we're gonna be, well, we're not gonna mention about this too much until whenever we get to those minigames, so it's almost perfect, but, the right eye is almost like, a little bit higher above, so we need to able to get that down at some point. But then again, it's a little bit of a coincidence anyway, though. So even then, not too bad though. So even then, though, for the first attempt, pretty spot on. As for Fuzzy Flight Score, it then actually took us about 2 attempts. Because the first attempt, though, well, in this minigame this time around, though, is that like in Goldrian Goblins, is the fact that we can't afford to get hit at least once. Because even then, though, because, well, if you somehow get hit at least once, well, you probably get yourself screwed over. So, we even end up that, basically, for the first attempt, though, we automatically get screwed over at the very end. Which I will admit, though, the ending portion of that minigame is actually a little bit trickier than it looks. So, even then, though, because of this, though, you have to be super accurate with all its movements and stuff. Especially in this last phase. Because in this last phase, it's really difficult. But apart from that, though, if you manage to make it towards the very end, or survive the last for long, then you weren't able to actually accomplish that. So, yeah, it's not too bad, though, but even then, nothing compared to the forms of how it does it on, you know, that Pie Hard minigame we always have trouble with. So, next minigame right here is All-Star Swingers, which basically, all we need to do in this one is the fact that you need to aim for about 25 points. And this is actually the final time we're going to be seeing those rhythm minigames. So, even then, though, we don't know exactly for sure what they're gonna do next, for, possibly for the next Mario Party or something, but even then, we'll find things out at some point in the future, though, with, you know, with the Nintendo Direct announcements or something like that. It would be funny if the fact that, once we finish this particular Let's Play of Super Mario Party, then, out of nowhere, the next one will be announced as soon as we finish up this Let's Play, which, even then, though, it might be seems pretty weird and all that stuff, and another perfect. Alright, so it's now down to 2 more minigames now, so even then, though, those are, well, Sphere Moguls, and especially noticeable with, you know, the Train of Pain, or Train in Pain, I should say. So in this case, we have Sphere Moguls. This is actually the final minigame that actually has failed attempts. Because even then, though, I would say this actually took us 3 attempts. Because the first 2 attempts, though, well, we're not supposed to able to actually just to grab these gold spheres, which is pretty much true for that regard. But we accidentally picked one, and what makes it a little bit of a bummer, though, is the fact that you really can't drop it off until you're able to get to your own corner zone. And the second attempt on that minigame, though, we actually lost by a few points by Monty Mole. So even then, though, that's the reason why this is actually the 3rd attempt. So, but if you get the hang of it, though, if you manage to able to completely ignore the golden spheres at the actual points, then you weren't able to pass that. So even then, though, and for the final minigame in this challenge road, then obviously Train in Pain. And this time around, though, we actually compete against with Mario, so that, well, since we played as Mario last time, so I figure we actually have ourselves a payback. And luckily, though, for the Train in Pain is actually the 1st attempt. So even then, though, because this is extremely easy if you manage to get the hang of it, though. But as you can see, we almost got very lucky right there because of how the fact that, well, at first I thought we're gonna get ourselves screwed over for a second or two because Mario is actually going super fast. And what the hell is going on right there? I like the way how it does that, though, because it's almost like a little bit of a chase sequence or something like that. So, but there we go, folks. I think that pretty much seems to say about the forms of, well, Master Mode's Challenge Mode. So even then, though, if you manage to accomplish every single objectives, though, you get yourselves a free reward if you manage to able to actually accomplish all of that. So even then, though, And also at the same time though, you know that crown icon, we've already mentioned about this before, that if you see there is actually a blue crown, if you get into the actual monitor, this means that you were able to actually accomplish the actual normal mode. Now, as you can see, we got ourselves a pom-pom sticker, which we've already technically got, so naturally it gives us 5,000 points back. So even then I just want to classify that. So, and now the actual crown icon is now in yellow, just for the sake of the forms of like you've already accomplished all the challenges in master mode. So even then though, and I think that's as far as we can able to show this off when it comes to Super Mario Party. So even then though, we'll go ahead and end things off here with the forms of, yeah, you can able to rewatch the actual credits or the actual ending cutscene again by going through award ceremony option on the actual gem selection. So even then though, yeah, that's as far as we can able to say about this for this point. So let's watch the actual, the award ceremony for one last time. But this time around though, since we are playing as Bowser on that specific, you know, for the game so far, because of this though, we'll like to show off the different, slightly different alternative endings. So, whilst everything else it plays out though, it plays out exactly the same, up until when it gets to the point after all the superstar, you know, celebration and all that stuff. So everything else plays out exactly the same. So we don't need to able to actually get any comments on that. So even then, until the middle portion right here. So obviously though, that's as far as we can able to actually show off when it comes to Super Mario Party. Sure, there are some missing parts, like for instance the actual, you know, the continuation of River Survival Hard mode, because, well, the hard course I should say, because we can never seem to able to afford to able to accomplish that, because that is really difficult. But then again though, we did show off as this. You can also skip this if you want, but we'll just have to show this off because of this part. Because now Bowser Jr. is managed to able to get things in, so that's right, my Pops is better than everyone. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, because, you know, Bowser Jr. was actually considered to be Bowser's son, so even then though, it's a nice little reference for that point right there. So even then though, it's a nice little things to able to mention about this specific stuff. So even then though, yeah. But then again, that they share the exact same dialogue, so there's no point any to get into that. So apart from the actual some differences here, that some of these character spots has been replaced or something. So yeah, you probably get the idea. Yeah, at the next party, the superstar is going to be me. Which means is that how the fact that it might be pretty weird again if the next Mario Party will be announced, if it's going to be either Mario Party 12 or Super Mario Party 2 or Mario Party the top 200 or something. But then again, we'll find things out during the likes of it at some point in Nintendo Direct in some point in September or something. But once again though, it's the fact that the actual players managed to able to have some fun time or what have you, and then just managed to able to, you know, have some fun together. So that's as far as we can say about the forms of for that specific ending differences, is the fact that obviously there's actually like different dialogue between Bowser or Bowser Jr. But again, if you play as someone else though, it shared the exact same thing as Mario's or anyone else for that matter. So yeah, let's get into the actual final thoughts of Super Mario Party as far as the actual Nintendo Switch latest installment for, you know, for a Mario Party game at the time. I think this is easily a little bit more better than the forms of how it does it. I would say this is actually the best ND-Cube game out there for Mario Party, because it's a little bit more better than 9, Island Tour, 10, Star Rush, and especially noticeable with the top 100, because even then, well, at least Star Rush and the top 100, it's not awful or anything. It's just that, well, even then, I will discuss about the positives out of the way. First of all, I feel like the character roster in this game is actually way more up there, and even way more better than the top 100 was. Because the top 100's, you know, character roster is pretty lackluster in my opinion. Because there's only like 8 of them though, as opposed to the usual 12. From the likes of Star Rush or anything like that, even Mario Party 10, and even 9 as a result. But, also the graphics in this game looks absolutely superb. Even then, it does add a lot more textures on there this time, like Mario and Luigi's overalls and all that stuff. And, especially noticeable about the fact that the music is pretty nice distraction here and there too. Plus, some of these minigames, well, they still usually become the usual 80, just like the forms of how it does it in, Mario Party 9 and especially Island Tour. But apart from that though, with the usage of the actual Joy-Con usages with that specific stuff, it's actually very unique and interesting though, because this is the reason why this game is only uses with the actual Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons, because that game does have a lot of usage on that. Same applies for 1-2 Switch, but that's a complete different story. And also the actual the controls in some of these minigames, they are pretty fun for the most part though. It does take a while to get used to with those specific parts sometimes. And most of the actual modes in this game is actually not too bad. Even then, you have tons of modes able to go through, just like the ones in Star Rush, but they're pretty much in a different spectrum and stuff like that. Whilst the game itself is almost pretty much perfect, it does have its flaws like all games have. For starters, is the fact that, well, I feel like the actual online mode itself is pretty much disappointing in that regard, because it has some serious flaws like controls delayed, and especially noticeable with sometimes random freezing, and it's such a massive letdown for me. And also, there is quite a lack of too many party boards. There's only 4 of them throughout each mode, between Party Mode and Mario Party Mode, but I think that's as far as we can go for this point, so you should definitely recommend you get this on your Nintendo Switch at this point, which I'm sure many people already did, which I'm very glad the classic Mario Party is back at long last. Yeah, I can definitely agree. So that concludes our Let's Play of Super Mario Party. So this is me, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Pinkie Pie here, so I'll see you guys soon. Bye.